Hey guys, so where I last left off, I modeled up the hand and I added some subdivisions. And then since then, all I did was add one edge loop along this body because it was getting pretty, like, there wasn't enough information there to even like move around. There weren't nearly enough verts, so I had to add an edge loop right there. And I kind of just aligned the rest of these edge loops along the arm to kind of fit that geo more. I'm going to get this on that note, I'm going to kind of move this to the center of that elbow there. Get this edge loop kind of supporting that as well. Just a minor adjustment, because remember when we put in joints there, we want them to deform a little bit more properly, because if there's not enough geo around there, when you go to bend those joints, your mesh is going to crumple. And from the top, I'm going to kind of add a little bit of curve to this arm here, and a little bit right there as well, because our arms aren't perfectly we're organic, you know. We got shapes to us, so it makes sense that our models would also have a smoother appeal. But now we need to address kind of the body. So I'm gonna start going to the side. Start adjusting my verts. You'll notice that I deleted half the mesh because it was just kind of getting in the way, and I'm just gonna model down this half for a little bit, and then we'll switch back to this side view. So I'm gonna kind of move these in. Notice how the belt buckle rests right here, so all of the core of like the torso would need to be behind that belt buckle, right? So I'm moving that all that geo to make room for that, and match this up. Notice how when I move this entire ring of verts, some of these get thrown off, so I'm going to try to go back in and adjust those to make it not as just get rid of some of that jankiness. And I know it's very tedious, and it's honestly why I don't normally model like this, because the sort of the industry standard workflow. Ooh, notice how I have this edge that kind of wavers away from that seam on the tunic. I'm going to move that back to get that in the right position. But yeah, the normal workflow is to go into a sculpting program like ZBrush or something, and then sculpting out some a higher poly version of this, and then after you get that sculpture where you want it to be visually, then you bring it back into Maya, and then you kind of lay these points over it, and that process is a lot less moving individual points. Still, you have to at some point set each of those points individually, right? But like at least with that high poly sculpt, you don't have as much kind of getting in the way, so you can kind of relax. It's basically an advanced feature of, like, you know, when you press V and you're like vertex snapping. That's how it's going to all the verts. It's basically a higher level of that, where you instead would snap verts to your high poly mesh and just work like that, you know. So I got those edges now in there. I think she could use a little bit more definition in this area. You see how we have that kind of edge loop in the middle, and then multiple right there. I feel like this middle section is lacking an edge loop, so I'm going to go into Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and I'm going to use that Insert with Edge Flow feature, and we'll see what that does for us. Boom. Yeah, awesome. You see how it kind of just, I really like that tool. I want you guys to know about that one, because it's pretty nice. It gets you to a resolution that you kind of need to be. And I'm going to do the same for this area as well, and this area. Because remember when I was laying out these, I said I want them to kind of be more uniform across the mesh. So I want this torso to be more uniform as well. So now we need to model a little bit of the anatomy. But first, I need to. I'm going to want to mirror this, because you see from this front view, like we have to model this like sort of rib cage feature in the boobs and the armpit. Like we have to get all that in there. So unfortunately, on this side, which is the side that I was modeling, it has this bandolier or leather strap, what have you, whatever you'd like to call it. So I'm going to mirror my model, mesh mirror. I'm going to open up the options. It's going over native right now. Apply. Let's see. And whenever it's looking pretty good. Whenever you do this, you have to go around the outside, because it basically merged this middle edge loop, right? But if that middle edge loop is at all like, if you at all had like a vert like that, like even the smallest amount, it might not merge it properly. And if you also have like two different verts that are like this, it might, when it moves them, it might end up just collapsing them on top of each other, and then that gives you some weird results in your mesh. Like you want to keep your quads and stuff where they were before you mirrored. And it's been a while since I've just looked at this mesh, so I'm going to go into the material attributes and material attributes again. I'm going to crank down that transparency just to see where we're at. Okay, I'm going to turn off wireframe on shaded. Yeah, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of those hard normals right there. So mesh display, soften edge. Let's see. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at with this model. And in my opinion, we can use a little bit more definition right here. I'm going to go back into modeling tool and go into symmetry. I'm going to do object X to get a little bit of a more roundness to that. Perfect. I'm going to go back into the material attributes. And so something to note is that you can, if you're in face mode, you can, and then you try to go to the material attributes, it will. Well, I mean, in this version, apparently it errors out, but you can accidentally assign material attributes to faces, like specific faces. So if when you're looking at your material attributes and they look out of whack, and like corresponding to specific faces, it might be because you have some that are like some material applied to only this face or like this edge loop or something, So that's something to think about, or that might be something you might need to solve if you're seeing problems like that. So now we need to get this armpit situated. And I'm going to go make sure, Object X is on. And whoo! Okay, alright, there we go. So I'm going to start aligning this to that seam, because that's where the arm comes out of. And right at the end of class, remember, we're going to eventually extrude this. Oh, remember, if you see that going on, it's because symmetry mode kind of messes with the selection. So you just have to redo your selection, and then you can move it right after an extrusion. So remember, we're going to kind of extrude the sleeve out to make that shape, right? Oops. So that would go down the length of that. And when you're doing clothes like that, it's best to keep the edge loops on the clothes as close to the edge loops on the skin underneath, because it will deform a lot better when it's rigged that way. But I'm not worrying about that for now. So I'm going to go undo until I get my poly extrude back. I'm just waiting. I just want you guys to know where my mind is headed. But right now, our process is going to be making more of the torso and the legs. So that's going to be the goals for this exercise. And so for the chest, at least, she does have some boobs. So we're going to need to get, and if you think about them more in terms of like extrusions, right? Like that, because they're coming off of the skin. So I could go into face mode. And just kind of yeah, because that's pretty much, you'll see that it comes from there all the way down. I'm going to actually deselect these. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we could just extrude these. Yeah, it's going to be weird. So I'm just going to reselect it. It was only moving the entire mesh there because it's in symmetry mode still. So you'll see, actually, I'm going to scale this direction a little bit. There we go. I'm going to take this inside edge loop. Sort of do this, and it's sort of a backwards way of how I would do it, because normally I would just multi-cut those edge loops in, but it would end up being the same topology as just extruding it as well. And since you guys are kind of more familiar with the extrusion tool, I decided that it would probably be better to just show you that way. So now we're going to need to go into our profile view, and I'm going to kind of line up this extrusion, or this geo, with the drawing. So that's pretty much where it binds. Remember, the pec muscles kind of stretch up and then bind to the bicep right there. So we're going to kind of get that swoop going in our mesh, because that's usually a smooth shape in this. And boobs are just fat basically bound to that muscle group, right? So it would make sense to have our geometry kind of show that as well. There we go, there we go. And let's not make them look so saggy. Let's give them a little bit more volume. There we go, perfect. Alright, and they're looking like some hard boobs right now, so we need to go in and go to Mesh Display and Soften Edge. So you can kind of see, yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let's see how the geo looks. Okay, so this edge needs to come out a little bit more from the silhouette. That one right there. Yeah, that one needs to like match down here basically. And yeah, I want to get that same sort of slope right there. So I'm going to kind of move these outside edges, these three outside defining ones, and you'll see that this part kind of got collapsed in, so we're going to fix that and move those ones out. And there we go, it's looking better, it's looking better. You'll notice that these are, this poly is a little bit more stretched than this one, so I'm going to kind of, you know, like even out the gap between them, you know, to get like a nice more round shape, because we're dealing with organic forms. Doing the same for that one. Same for that one. Same for that one. And there you go. Perfect. Perfect. I am a little bit worried about this poly right there being a bit too like stretched out, you know. So I might think about trying to solve that later. Actually, if you guys don't mind me just experimenting a little bit, by welding those together, we could make those all quads still. And then, okay. It's kind of interesting. You see how that happened there? So like, I just welded those points together, and then so now we have a nice edge loop for the arm specifically, and that we don't have that poly that's all stretched to hell anymore. So I think I enjoy that. Yeah. I'll stick with that. I'll stick with that. Let's actually let's go into mesh mode. Material attributes, material attributes. Let's actually check this with some shading on. So that's what it looks like post change. And if we look at our example, it's not that hard of an edge right there as it meets the shoulder area. So if I go in and undo that, oh, okay, all right, there we go. And material attributes, I just kind of want to see what it looks like. Yeah, so either kind of looks like it's going to work. Huh, okay. I'm going to leave it this way for now, just because with this current topology setup, we have an edge loop going under and kind of dividing up the arms from the rest of the torso. So that we might need that like kind of buffer edge between that and our arm. Sorry, I'm just thinking aloud right now, or actually I was just thinking quietly. But I'm gonna leave it like that for now, and I'm gonna go about the legs. So the way I make legs is I usually, see, that was that same symmetry error where you try to move an extrusion and then it just kind of, I don't know why that's a bug. That was a bug back in 2017. It honestly makes me question, like, like why is that still in here? And honestly, maybe it's something that I'm doing wrong, because if it's been bugged for that long, then they must like it, you know. Oh, something's wrong with our symmetry there. Okay, yeah, so I accidentally selected that face as well. There we go. All right, got that selection. I'm going to bring this down to the width of the belt. The belt goes all the way down there. But if you look at her hip joint, if this is her knee and this is her ankle, it's about the same distance between the knee that it is to the hip. So the hip would probably end up right about here. But I find when you have belts that are that close to the hip, that they start to get really whacked up when you start bending them around, when like characters lift their legs and stuff. It's unfortunately on the main character of my game as well. So I'm gonna try to avoid that and kind of artificially, I know it's not following the reference, but I'm gonna move the belt up a little bit. And here we go. There we go. Okay. So that's where the belt's going to be, and when we make that, we're just going to extrude out. And I might just keep that in there right now, actually. Let me make sure from the side view. From our side view, I kind of was messing up. So we need to now interpret how thick to make this mesh. Gonna move this bottom vert down to get a nicer circle there. And if I go in, I start fixing some of these. This is the type of scenario in which I'm going to use soft select, because I want to get some of these verts from the belt as well, because I made it a bit too shallow. So if I expand that and then pull those verts out, you'll see that it made that nice. Yeah, see, it didn't get enough of that part of the belt, so I'm gonna have to go in, and this is when I use just more of my single vert precision type moving. So there we go. Now we're going to be making the legs next. I know she has the bottom of the tunic that kind of goes around, and I just want to get the legs themselves modeled, see how we're setting the arm up for a similar type of scenario. So our tunic is going to work the same way, where we're going to extrude to get a ring of like an edge loop there, and then we're going to extrude that edge loop out. But first we need to start counting up our verts on the bottom to kind of shoot for, because remember I said I like working with 12 spans. Some people like 16. 16 is perhaps better as well, because 16 is it's kind of hard to explain, because with 12 on a cap, let me turn this down to 12. So with 12 spans on a cap, imagine if I had to make this cap all out of quads. Let me turn off symmetry. Imagine I had to make this cap out of quads, right? So when you're modeling like an arm or something in 12s, now if you had to make resolve it and make quads out of the sides, you'd end up with this sort of, like, look, there's a span along the top perfectly, but for these like front quads, but then there's not a span right there. And then if I make a 16 subdivision one, if I went in and made quads out of this, so if I had to go in and make quads out of that cap, then I would have a span across the top perfectly and a span across the side perfectly as well. So it's pretty nice. It doesn't really matter for the overall silhouette from the side, but when you're working with stuff at the very end, like this is where the hand would attach right on this part, so then you'd have to resolve it with that. But like I showed you how to do that with 12 spans, so that it's like a small difference, you know. But yeah, a lot of people end up with 16s on their stuff, but like I said, my project is more low poly, so we want to get that feel. So I'm gonna shoot for a 12 subdivisions on whatever we have coming from here. So we have this issue of we're going to be extruding the legs out of this, but we also need kind of the polys to flow in a way to get that sort of V of the pelvis that you'll see in like the lower abdomen region. And something super useful, guys, is to just go online and like look up topology, like type in this word, because topology basically means like how nicely edges flow into each other. And you'll see this image was like right around here, but here's a bigger version of it. So we're trying to get this effect, right, of having this sort of edge flow around there, like around the top of the leg, but then also go under to create like the crotch area. So we need to do that sort of setup as well here. And remember, well, look how dense these legs are. Like that's beyond what we need for our purposes. But because I'm just going to use 12 spans along those legs. And this is a bit of a brain bender, because if you look right here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spans right here. So if I select these, this is 12. So we could basically, let me do this in the wrong way. We could bring it out like this, and then we'd be like, oh, shoot, okay, so now I can just extrude this, right? And like you technically could, but then the middle, because if you look at like the symmetry of how these spans are working, the middle of your leg kind of just loops up into the body and across the rest of it. And I kind of want to use my edge flow to kind of divert into the middle of the pelvis. So I'd like to avoid that sort of method. And this is a bit of a brain bender, but if I'm going to stick with my 12 span ideology for this, I'm going to have to divert. And if I want that, like, sort of, where is it? If I want this sort of V shape in there, you see how this edge loop kind of diverts into itself across the symmetry right there? And same with here. I'm going to do that with this. So I'm going to move this edge up here. I'm going to make it smaller. And I know this looks like the tunic right now, but we're not modeling the tunic. We're setting up the legs. And then if I cut across straight to the middle, if it doesn't let you do that, it's probably doing something weird with symmetry. I'm going to do the same on the back as well. But yeah, if it doesn't let you do that, then you can probably bet that symmetry is letting you. Symmetry gets really weird when you're cutting towards the actual line of symmetry. And now I have that try, right? So if I delete this, now I have an end-on, which isn't much better, but we're super close to having it be fine, because if we just delete this edge all the way up there, you'll be fine. You'll see you still have those verts existing though, so you have to go into vert mode and then delete them as well. So now, yeah, in vert mode you can see it, and now we have these edges flowing into each other. So this is kind of like what's going to create that sort of V shape for us on our mesh. And I'm going to move this back in. Oops, wrong view. Yeah, because this is going to need to fold under pretty quickly here. I'm going to move this span closer in. I can move this out. So yeah, that's basically how I'm redirecting the flow, the edge flow there. And oh, let me fix the back. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spans. So, we need a few more spans here. But now we have this nice supporting geometry for like the ab shape. And our loops are diverting across. So if we go in, and, I might have scaled down the wrong side, whatever. If I go in with multicut, we can now get wait, let's count these up. I might have selected this wrong. 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12. There we go. Perfect. So if we extrude this out, now we can see. I'm going to scale these down. I'm going to fix up this bottom topology because you can see it's like running into itself and all over the place. And that's no good. There we go. There we go, there we go. There we go, there we go. So I'm going to kind of just relax these, meaning like get the spacing more even on them. And this is working out for us. So now we have the start of our leg. Very nice, very nice. And some of you guys might have characters with feet. I mean, my character does too, but you might actually have like a foot modeled in there, right? So you're gonna need. I'm not including a foot tutorial, but it's probably one going to be similar to how we did the hand, and two shouldn't be. I would think the hand is a little bit more difficult, given how the thumb is on there, but it shouldn't be that much harder. I am including a video from a guy who did a really good hand tutorial too, so you can follow that one on. That'll be in course content on Beachboard. So I am now ready to start moving these legs into position. You'll see that mine are way too thick right now, so I'm going to make those smaller. I'm going to make this gap a little bit bigger. There. And this is going to come in a little bit. That's looking good. This individual vertical unit is coming in a little bit. All right. So I'm just going to go down to the knee. You'll notice that my my legs in my reference image are horrendously aligned. Like they don't line up very well. And so I'm going to take some artistic liberty with that. But so I'm gonna the knee, you can see, if this is the knee guard, the knee's probably in the middle right there. So I'm just gonna move it down to there. I'm gonna go into face mode. I'm gonna select. Instead of like one by one selecting this whole cap, right? What I like to do is go select from the side, and then deselect with Control, and then left click and drag, and then it automatically gets that. It's just a lot more. It's a lot quicker than just going through each one of those. And then we're going to scale from the side to make sure we don't get too thick. that like looks a little bit off balance in the drawing. So for each of these points on the drawing, I'm probably gonna move it a little bit back to kind of stay a little bit over our center of mass, you know, because we don't want we don't want the mesh to look like it's off balance in its default pose like that. That would be pretty bad. I'm gonna take care of this pointy butt angle right here. There you go. Move that back in. Move that over. All right, perfect, perfect. All right. So now I'm going to extrude again. Pull that down. I'm going to bring that up to the, like right above the ankle, right before it starts bending. And here we go. So I'm going to target weld these real quick because this is kind of bothering me how they look right there. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. And you'll notice like there's some really weird lighting going on now, and the mesh looks fine though from wireframe. So I'm gonna assume that's because the normals are all whacked up. So I'm gonna go to mesh display, and then I'm gonna soften edge again. There we go. So it's, yeah, that was just a normals error. So I'm going to go into the vertex mode for this. Just select all of them. Kind of pull in there. I'm going to go from the side view and turn this material back to a little bit transparent. To attributes, transparency. And remember, I'm keeping it a little bit further back from the drawing because in the drawing it kind of looks imbalanced. And we have these 12 spans. So I'm going to go in again and then just select that cap real quick and then extrude that. Oh. I'm going to select those again. Sorry, the symmetry tool kind of messes with extruding. You kind of have to use like that. I don't like using that mode of it because it kind of feels less precise to me because it's extruding along the normals of that object. Whoa. So now we're kind of trying to create that heel shape there. And kind of looks like she has hooves right now. So let's solve that. We need to make the rest of the foot. And I'm going to try to continue this trend. So if you look down at your foot, look at like where those, if you compare that edge, this bottom edge loop, to like right below your ankle bone, it kind of smooths in and then points out. So we're going to be extruding basically the rest of that foot. So to extrude this foot out, what we're going to need to do is go into here, and let me make sure, because this vert's a little bit far over. I'm guessing it's like that throughout the leg as well. Yeah. Look how like uneven these are. We're just going to go into transform constraint and do an edge slide on this. That way I don't have to worry too much about messing up topology while I change that. In fact, all this kind of is jutting out a bit. Just a bit. So right there, moving that in. It's a little bit more sleek. So we're going to need to, oh, I had the other side selected. So we're going to need to extrude the front end of this foot, right? Because the front end is where the oh, let's turn off edge. There you go. So we need to extrude that out. You'll notice if we do that, this kind of edge loop forms there. So instead, I want to actually grab some of the bottom as well. So we're just going to extrude that, and there we go. And made these way too long for Grandma. In our game, we kind of have like a Wind Waker sort of style for feet. And if you don't know about Wind Waker, I, 1, highly suggest playing it. It's one of my favorite games ever. And 2, everything is like has like really tiny feet. Big chest, big arms, and then tiny little feet. So that's we're gonna mimic that sort of shape. I'm gonna kind of slowly get these verts to kind of get a nice slope there. Foot. Oh, this one's messed up. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! What's going on here? When did these tries get made? What? Excuse me. What? Ah, see, I have a duplicate. I didn't move one of my extrusions. The classic tail. Tail as old as time. So I'm going to go into vert mode, and I'm just going to select those because they're pretty much right on top of each other. I'm just going to drag select over all of them. I'm going to do an edit or a wait, mesh. Wait, no, it is that edit mesh. Okay, edit mesh and then merge. And then I'm going to test by dragging over the faces. Yeah, so now those are merged up. If they weren't, you would see these faces move, and then there would still be verts on the foot that are limiting that movement. And I'm going to go into multi-cut again. I'm going to do an insert edge loop with that insert with edge flow activated. See what that gives me. Oh, kind of messed up. How could you betray me like this? You see how it kind of went in. It worked well on this side, but on these back verts, or on these back verts, it kind of just crumpled them inward. If you kind of look from the side, I want them to kind of push out. And this will be a good opportunity to show you. This is kind of a weirder tool, so I'm going to turn off the insert with edge flow. So I'm going to just select that edge, and I'm going to go instead convert that selection by holding Control and right click over it. And I'm going to convert that to verts, and then I'm going to hold W and left click. And remember how you can go into object mode of your object, you can go into world mode, you can go into component. So then it's like choosing an average pivot of all those components in there. But another one you can do is go to axis, and then live object axis, long rotation axis. Those are new, or wait, one of those is new. But we're looking for normal. So now, remember when I was talking about the normals of your object and how that affects lighting? Because remember, if you're in well, I'm going to have to actually fix this real quick. Because you see how these edges are hard right there? If we go into Mesh Display and then Soften Edge, it kind of softens out all of those normals on that. So if I go back into Edge, and then I Control right click, 2 verts, and then it's already on there. But if I go to Axis and Normal, now the normal or lighting information for all these verts now, when we do Soften Edge, kind of points it straight out from the mesh, because it's like if a light beam hits it, it wants to bounce off at that flat, like that angle pointing directly away from the mesh, and then that's how it softens it out. So you'll see that when we move along the normals, it kind of just goes straight out away from the mesh as well. So that's kind of it's a strange way of kind of just moving things out to give it that volume as well. But I think it's wonderful. So I'm going to do that. Very nice, very nice. And I'm gonna go into my front view. I'm gonna deactivate normal mode. I'm gonna go by holding W and left click. I'm gonna get out of normal mode, and we're gonna go back into regular mode. That's looking good. That's looking pretty nice. Pretty nice indeed. Yeah, so it's gonna be just fudging around verts for a little bit. I'm gonna need to insert some more edge loops as well for this kind of stuff. What is going on here? Excuse me, sir. You don't have authorization here. What? No. Yeah, I think the mesh is messed up from that weird. Yeah, this is all wacky. All sorts of wacky. And then my other side's messed up too, because in symmetry mode, those faces were right on top of each other. So then it just, when I was selecting those to delete them, it deleted kind of all of it. So I'm gonna need to, sorry Grandma, I'm gonna need to cut you in half. Yeah, so that's the danger of that extrude tool, my guys. Like even for me, it still can mess you up, but we'll be fine. Mesh mirror, same options as before. I'm going across on X. Click mirror. I'm going to verify that it didn't weld any verts together. Like any close verts is what you need to look out for most. So that's looking good. I'm gonna kind of move these faces up. They kind of seem a little bit too low. So if I expand my saw selection, kind of move probably right there, I'd say. So now we have this setup going. We have this kind of boot shape. So that's how I'm doing the shape of the foot. I'm going to start inserting some loops for the actual boot itself. And you'll see that it kind of turns forward, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to set another one down here. Pretty sure I don't have symmetry on. That's fine. You can always mirror again. I'm going to move this edge down. I'm going to just extrude out. I'm going to use the blue z-axis. Kind of give me some, like a slight warping, so I'm going to undo that. Control Z, I'm just going to go into scale mode. I'm just going to scale along this. Not big on this sort of edge right here. I would have liked to fix this before I extruded out. But I was blind. I didn't see it. So I'm going in here. I'm going to fix that now. Kind of get that nice rounder shape. I'm going to rotate all of these. Kind of move those in. So we currently only have one subdivision on the, we need to pull this out further by clicking one vert on an edge that's connected with like just like those 4 cross sections. Maya can easily, if you click on one and then shift double click on the other, it'll just select all the way down that way. So I'm going to move that out. And remember, my foot is a bit further back than the one in the drawing because we want to keep her more on balance. So I'm going to kind of move that back as well. In here, I'm going to do the same for this loop. And then I'm just going to cut her in half because I'm going to get confused by looking at that profile view with all of those faces in there. So I'm going to go and disable soft select, even though I don't believe that affects deleting edges like that. So now we can go in and get some more detail. Remember I said you need that supporting geometry to create animation for these joints. So if I like left it as is right now and just kind of started animating her, this ring of faces would then start kind of collapsing in on itself because there's not enough geo there. So we're going to need to go into Mesh Tools, insert Edgeloop, and I'm going to do the insert with edge flow. Let's see what it gets. Gets it kind of like a little skinnier setup there. Let's see up there. That's a bit too skinny. So I'm going to just use regular multi-cut for this top one. You notice this calf, we're going to need to kind of scale out for that. So I'm going to scale it out. And I scaled on all directions because the calf kind of pops out in different views as well. And then it doesn't bulge out too much in the front, so I'm going to kind of move that loop back. And I'm going to do the same for this. I'm going to kind of go in and smooth these edges into each other. Get that like a nice little swoop right there. And the same goes for the toe, right? Because we need to be able to flex our toe. And best way to do that is this is going to be a little bit of an interesting way because if I insert an edge loop right here, you see that it like skews way towards that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and select that top edge and then select this top edge, and I'm going to cut across. And oh no, we got to try. Oh, but if we go in and cut down, we'll get a little bit more definition, so we can make a nicer, smoother sort of turn to the front of the foot. So it's a nice little bonus right there. But then we need to resolve this bottom edge loop. Oh, whew. Oh, you can see our topology down there. Yeah, man, I really wish I didn't mess up that extrusion in here because there would normally be faces in here that we'd have to then get rid of because we need to divert the geo, right? Because we just made that loop right there at the top, and we need to continue that loop at the bottom. So normally there'd be a little bit of a puzzle here, but that one kind of solved itself. Sorry for that, guys. But yeah, so you just seal that up, and then you'd see that there is now a loop that you can nicely select. Wait a minute. That should have selected a lot nicer than it did. I don't trust these. I don't trust these verts, man. Something's going on. Something is going on. Let's give it another go. Uh-oh. 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 Tragic. Something's going on. You see when I select and there's like that little like artifacting. I think that there's a face under this, underneath this somewhere, somehow. So I'm just going to delete all this, and I'm going to start checking these perimeters. Whoops, these perimeter verts. That one's fine. What about you? Not fine. The least fine. Yep, there's two verts on top of each other there. The least fine I've ever seen. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to drag select over both of them just to make sure that I got them. And I'm just going to go to edit mesh. And I could do merge. I'm going to do merge to center because there's no, with merge to center, there's no fall off. It'll just take whatever two verts you have and just mesh tools merge to edit mesh. It'll just merge those together. You see, like it just didn't even care how far apart they were. So I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to do edit mesh, merge to center. And I'm going to do a mesh fill hole on this. Yeah, sorry, this tutorial is going to be a bit longer than I was expecting because I've been messing up, but that's fine. So I'm just going to cut across there, and I'm going to cut across here. And now let's try to select those faces. So I'm going to left click on one, and then I'm going to shift double left click on another one. There we go. Okay, we got that in there now. So I'm going to insert an edge loop, and notice it's going to be inserting with a lot more flat than it was before. It was really skewed before. So I'm going to insert one about where the boot would start to curl, you know, when you take a step. And I'm going to go into edge mode, and I'm going to go to transform constraint, edge slide, and I'm going to scale this down with that. So now it's abiding by those edges while we're scaling down. So we get a nice clean loop that's a lot more flat right there. And I'm going to do another supporting one over here. Right there. I'm going to edge slide and scale that one in as well, because like since these edges are pulling like this, it's kind of doing the same for the multi-cuts. So we kind of move that in, and I'm going to do another insert edge loop here because the ankle has a lot of bending in it, you know, when you're taking steps. I'm going to turn off edge slide. The ankle bends a lot, right? So it's going to need a good amount of spans in order to keep its volume throughout its bends. And so now I want a more kind of natural foot look, and this is the left foot. So the big toe would be somewhere around here, right? So I'm going to kind of go into edge mode. I'm going to go into soft select. I'm going to change that fall off by holding B and holding mouse click. Middle mouse click, and I'm going to kind of pull that out, and then I'm going to kind of push these ones in. Right there. I'm going to insert another edge loop here. Yeah, this foot's kind of getting a little bit dense compared to the rest of the mesh, but it's fine. I'm going to kind of get that that inset part of the foot. So you see how it's kind of closer to that foot type shape. So I'll leave it like that. Then I'm going to kind of push these in. Yeah. Yeah. This part should probably push out further. I'm just kind of looking at my own foot while I do this. And there you go. Now also, since these are boots, I'm kind of assuming that they're going to have a hard, like little bit of a platformness to them. Whoops, I need to control deselect those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this up. I'm going to scale it in a little bit. I'm going to extrude in. I'm going to adjust the offset of this Because if I just simply scaled it, since it's this oblong shape, these edges would start scaling in faster than these edges. So I'm going to offset by 0.02. Wait, yeah, let's try 2. Okay, so that was way too much. So I'm going to do 0.001. And yeah, that's pretty good edge. I'm going to do 0.0005 to get half that. Ah, I didn't use, that was way too small for it. I'm going to do 0.001 then. Alright, so we got that. Going to pull that out a little bit. Then I'm going to extrude again. And just take that to the bottom. I'd like to instead have this kind of going out. And we could try our axis by normal. We'll see if they do the face normals. Nah, yeah, that's only for verts. Sounds like still unfortunate. So I'm just gonna go into our good old scale tool, scale that out past the sides, then out past the front. That'll work fine. These ones kind of got messed up, but we can just go in and fix those. Have to go back into world for that because we tried normal. And your manipulator won't show up if you do it like that. And you're still in normal mode. So now I'm fixing these by hand, like a fool. So yeah, that's the old foot right there. Looking pretty nice. Looking pretty nice. Turn on 6 mode again. So we need to fix up the rest of the leg because it's looking a little bit sparse. Because we're gonna need more definition here for bending. And I'm going to just insert an edge loop with the multi-cut tool. And kind of scale that down a bit to skew these inside verts. And I'm going to kind of push that out, up and out a little bit to give it more of that hip kind of construction. And let's go in from the side. Pull these down to kind of give the butt a little bit of volume. And then I'm going to go in here and scale in a little bit. And I'm going to select these ones, kind of push these in as well. And on this next one, I'm going to start inserting edge loop. And I'm going to do that transform constraint edge slide and then R scale and then sort of scale it like that to try to start getting more flatter edge loops. And unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit more definition here, but that means it's pretty hard to avoid. Otherwise, we'd have to get some geo flowing this way. And since this part of the leg does need definition anyways, because it's gonna, like, the hip joint controls a lot of bending, you know. It makes sense to have multiple spans here anyways, you know. So it's like, yeah, so it will be beneficial for us in the long run. And the same goes for the shoulder. We're probably going to have to add a few more edge loops in here to get better bending. And we can do that when the time comes. But right now I'm going to finish off this leg. So I'm going to add an edge loop again. I'm going to add one right above that knee that we made. And I'm going to bring this in a little bit forward to match the drawing a little bit more. I'm not going to bring it all the way to the drawing right because I remember it's in the drawing itself, it's a little bit off balance, so I'm trying to move that leg back. And I'm going to do an insert edge loop with edge flow. We'll see how that looks. Insert with edge flow. Please, please. Didn't do much. So I'm just going to go in, kind of scale that out to give that swooping action. Let's make sure that the side view isn't looking whack anymore. I mean, the front view isn't looking whack. So we could use a nicer, a smoother fall off here. And there we go. Very nice, very nice. Okay. So I'm going to go into material attributes. Excuse me. And you'll see that some of this stuff is soft, some of it's hard. So I'm going to apply, I'll show you how to control that a little bit more. So if I soften all my edges, you'll see we kind of lose that hardness of there. So we can do the exact opposite as well and go in and kind of, I'm just double clicking these edge loops. Mesh display, harden edge. And you can see that you get that nice clean appeal. And that's helpful for, it depends on like what art style you're doing. Because like in my game we're using that hard and soft normal type appeal. Oh, so there we go. And then mesh display, harden edge. And in my other Maya, I have just a button to just harden the edge immediately, you know, because I don't like going into all those menus, you know. But it's important for you guys to know where that goes. All right, so that's the leg. Leg is set up now. We just need to merge over, mirror over. And I'm going to start setting up that tunic as well. So I'm going to go to object mode, edit mesh, or mesh mirror. And you'll see that it is looking pretty good. I'm going to kind of move these faces towards each other though. So I'm going to go into soft mode. I'm going to kind of pull this. Whoops. I want symmetry on. X, there we go. So now it's getting over a little bit nicer. I'm going to turn off, now I'm going to keep that on. I'm going to turn off soft select so I can get those verts exactly where I want them. Kind of move this in. Very nice. Yeah, we're well on our way to getting a character. So I'm going to cut the tutorial here because I'm going to start doing some like other modeling for this character, but I will upload that stuff as well. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is and upload this for the body and leg tutorial. And then we're going to be moving on to the head later, but I'm going to do the rest of like this tunic and stuff, and the belt, and some of this armor stuff, maybe the glove. So I'm going to do all that in a separate video. That's probably going to be a pretty long video because there's some stuff that I'll have to figure out for stuff like this collar. That is going to be difficult. So yeah, sounds good though. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this is beneficial.